achieved independence from the Ottoman Empire in 1829. During the second half of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, it gradually added neighboring islands and territories, most with Greek-speaking populations. In World War II, Greece was first invaded by Italy and subsequently occupied by Germany. Fighting endured in a protracted civil war between supporters of the king and other anti-communist and communist rebels. Following the latter's defeat in 1949, Greece joined NATO in 1952. In 1967, a group of military officers seized power, establishing a military dictatorship that suspended many political liberties and forced the king to flee the country. In 1974, democratic elections and a referendum created a parliamentary republic and abolished the monarchy. In 1981, Greece joined the EC, now the EU. It became the 12th member of the European Economic and Monetary Union in 2001. The Greeks invented athletic contests and held them in honor of their gods. The Isthmus game was staged every 2 years at the Isthmus of Corinth. The Pythian Games took place every 4 years near Delphi. The most famous games held at Olympia, southwest of Greece, which took place every 4 years. The ancient Olympics seem to have begun in the early 700 BC in honor of Zeus. No women were allowed to watch the games and only Greek nationals could participate. One of the ancient wonders was a statue of Zeus at Olympia, made of gold and ivory by Greek sculptor Pheidias. This was placed inside a temple, although it was a towering 42 feet high. The games at Olympia were greatly expanded from a one-day festival of athletics and wrestling to, in 472 BC, 5 days with many events. The order of the events is not precisely known, but the first day of the festival was devoted to sacrifices. On the middle day of the festival, 100 oxen were sacrificed in honor of a god. Athletes also often prayed and made small sacrifices themselves. On the second day, the foot race, the main event of the games, took place in the stadium, an oblong area enclosed by sloping banks of the earth. On other days, wrestling, boxing, and the pancratium, a combination of the two, were held. Macedonia seceded from Yugoslavia and became a sovereign state by a popular referendum held in September 1991 when the majority of voters chose independence. Greece immediately demanded from the international community not to recognize the country under its name Macedonia. Greece alleges that the Macedonians should not be recognized as Macedonians because the Macedonians have been of Greek nationality since 2000 BC. Secondly, those Macedonians whose language belongs to the Slavic family of languages must not call themselves Macedonians because 4,000 years ago, the Macedonians spoke Greek and still speak nothing but Greek. Macedonia has no right to call itself by this name because Macedonia has always been and still is a region of Greece. The people of Macedonia affirm that the ancient Macedonians were a distinct European people, conscious and proud of their nationality, their customs, their language, and their name. The same applies to the modern Macedonians today. The ancient Macedonians regarded the ancient Greeks as neighbors, not as kinsmen. The Greeks treated the Macedonians as foreigners, whose native language was Macedonian, not Greece. Thirdly, Macedonia was never a region of Greece. On the contrary, ancient Greece was subjected to Macedonia in 1913. Modern Greece and her Balkan allies partitioned Macedonia. During the classical Greek architecture period, it was made up of 3 different orders that are most commonly seen in their temples. These 3 orders were the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. The orders are also known for their column styles. The Corinthian order was not used as widely as the Doric or Ionic. The reason being is that the Corinthian order was fancier than the others and had a lot more detail. Thus, information dealing with this order is very little, and some is not worth putting up. The most basic order for their temples would be the Doric order. Doric architecture was known for being used by the Spartans. It all starts with some wood shafts, which later were replaced by stone. On the top of the shaft were circular pads with a square block of wood over it. The vertical columns were used to support the beams, called architraves. In order to form the ceiling, other beams were laid across the building with their ends on these architraves. On the end of these beams, they could be channeled to make a triglyph. On the top of a triglyph, there would be another beam which would be placed for the overhanging rafters. These type of beams were referred to as mutils. The finishing touches for the roof had to have a flat gables called pediments. The gutter ran along the top of the pediments and ended at a lion's mouth. This acted like a drain. The materials that were used for the roofs were thatch and the terracotta and marble. The Doric temples were similar to those of the Ionic order in layout and design. The final order would be the Ionic order. Their columns were more slender than those of the Doric order.